Welcome to Gallery Route One's Artist Interviews. I'm Diana Marto, and today we're going to be interviewing Xander Weaver's skull. We're with him right underneath this beautiful, I think it's a pepperwood tree in Petaluma, in the shade. And welcome.
Thank you so much. Today I'm going to be doing a little bit of demonstrations of different natural crafting of art materials and paintbrushes and paints. And for me, this journey started before I ever became a member at Gallery Route One. I came and attended a day-long workshop taught by Carlo Rivetta through Gallery Route One, and that got me learning about how to make natural inks, which led me to learning more about my local trees, about how different fruit tree resin and sap is used in inks all around the world as the binder that holds the ink and glues the ink onto the paper. So this comes from my plum tree that I harvest every fall. And to make ink, I put it in water, let it soak and dissolve down, take some of that, pour that in a container, which I've already prepped a little bit, and then need to add a pigment. So in this case, I have homemade charcoal that I ground up into fine powder, and I mix that in with the dissolved tree resin, and then add just a little bit more water often to the process. For this instance, I already have a little added water ahead of time, and need to mix it in. So while that settles some, here we can see this is charcoal ink, but over here I have a couple other examples of soils from California and the Bay Area, and from all around the world. So this soil right here, I make paint and ink in a similar way to the black ink. This is from the California foothills on the way up to the Sierras, while this red, somewhat similar but very different, is from Iceland. That I collected on some of my travels several years ago. And then for total variety, here's some clay harvested from the south side of Stinson Beach, out along the California coast. So with making natural materials and paints and pigments comes also making natural mark making tools. So this is the most simple mark making tool out there just about, is to carve a stick to a point, carve some off the end, and to get it to work best is to actually soak it in water ahead of time, which opens up the wood a little bit. And that is just about the most simple mark making tool possible. I've used this tool with homemade ink to do a little drawing of a bee. This type of ink that I made is a little bit different. It uses honey as the binder, what binds it to the page. So naturally I chose to make a drawing, you could say, or a painting of a bumblebee as kind of a, or honeybee I should say, as a way to honor the bee in the process of making this ink. So this ink may not have been mixed up enough, but I can give it a go and see what unfolds on the page. So most ink nibbed pens have something that's called a reservoir on them that help hold ink for longer, but as you can see, some of this I need to re-dip pretty quickly, but can result in some nice lines and variation. Let's see, next up is a brush that was made out of a Joshua tree bristle, and other types of plants that are spiky like this and have vast amount of fiber in them can be used for paintbrush making. I also learned this one from Carlo Rivetta, that you can see. The bristles are not strong at all, but they allow for some fun, unexpected texture. And then next up after that is a more complicated brush that I've just started making in the last month or so. And in a moment I'll show how I actually put this together, but it's a little bit more complex.
So I'm thinking about how the kinds of tools that you craft influence and inform how you work and what you are passionate about, your subject matter. And I would imagine that you're happiest when you're outside in the wilds, collecting and creating and just being integrated with this whole process.
Very much so. I think the creation of these materials has been my primary interest during this quarantine. I've struggled to have a regular in-studio creative practice and have been more drawn to the making of the tools rather than the making of the art. And particularly as I'm getting more and more into making these handcrafted wild tools, it's a little bit paralleling I think my journey towards maybe making a little bit more wild artwork that for the last 7 or 8 years I've deeply explored stencil making and creating imagery of threatened and endangered species, which I've very much loved so much, but the process itself has become a little bit formulaic, and I often kind of already in my head know what my piece is going to look like before I even ever start it, which over time has led me to slowly less and less be interested in making time for that kind of work. So I can feel I'm in a transition period, though I'm not quite sure where my artistic process will go next. All right, I think that looks pretty good from here. So
that's the best place to be, apparently, is in the question mark.
All right, so this back part here is going to need to go right in here. So to do that, basically gonna need to remove some more of this material. Use my handy X-Acto knife. Cut off the edge, and then let's get a little bit more in there. Need to tie this up, and the way I've started to do that is, since I have nice long hair, is I've started just pull out a hair or a couple hairs of mine, and they don't need to do anything too special. I just actually wrap, and sometimes I'll go back in with another hair to trip. So here we go. Because can't be using anything too thick since we're trying to fit it into a very small little area. And that can fit right into there. And now we've got these long dangly pieces, which maybe we should try and see what it looks like before I cut them down at all. It's always fun to see what the wildness of the tip of this brush might almost result in. And you can see maybe I could have thinned this ink down a little bit that I've made here. It's a little bit thick still, but perhaps it's exactly as it should be. And of course this is a very small page for this very large paintbrush, but
no, I like it because it looks like your hair got in there too.
So, as we can tell, not a lot of detail, but provides a lot of interesting things for it.